Hopefully everybody's feeling super enlightened today, super energized today, because today we are going to talk about stage 10, which stage 10 is called the ascent into unity, the ascent into the experience of oneness, the place in which, when we get to this stage, we are truly and authentically and effortlessly able to bless all that exists. And the challenge to being able to get into the stage, the challenge to be able to truly experience love for all that exists, is when we are limited in our ability to experience, but then also to understand that all of creation, all of existence is this process, this in seeming levels of change, evolution of one thing into another, this dying of one form and being rebirthed into another form creates these different levels. And we have different levels of development within the human. We start off as this little parasite that's just sucking from mom, and developing and not really doing anything. And then the next stage of development is whenever that first stage comes to an end, or that death process, which end up being the birth process into the external world, whenever we fully embody being able to run this biological system without the as much constant support from mom. You still need a lot of support, but we're still like this little cute little bag of potatoes that doesn't really produce anything, and we're just taking and sucking in now from the environment, and dad gets involved. And then as we develop, that stage comes to an end or comes to a death, and we're reborn into the toddler, and then into the child, and then into the adolescent, and then into the teenager, and then into the young adult, and then into the middle-aged adult, into the older adult, and then finally into the next stage, whatever that is. So this process of life, this process of development, this process of growth, that process is one of the constants in the universe, this constant of change. And so the ability to embrace each one of those levels, the ability to embrace each individual in humanity, to embrace each system of humanity, and embrace each system of nature, is the recognition of the process and the expression of that process through different levels. So today we're going to talk a little bit about those different levels, and how we can embrace the fact that the level that we are on and the level that we are experiencing is not the level that everyone else is on and experiencing. We have this concept that everyone's like us. They think like us, they feel like us. Yeah, they may have different life experiences, but they're very, very similar to us. And that is not true. Every different level has its own unique way of processing information and responding to that information at the different energy levels. So this concept that we have that everyone is just like us, just with their life experiences laid over, is no, that's not really how it works. And so once we are able to fully let go of that concept and the experience of being one whole with the universe is very, very necessary. That experience is the doorway into being able to love and accept everyone where they are, regardless of what their expression is. To recognize that their expression is simply their level of understanding, their level of information processing, their level of being able to act, and their potential. So it's not like everyone is just like us and they're just choosing to be assholes. That expression that we judge as being an asshole really is the best that that person can do with the situation that they're in, their level of consciousness and their energy level. When we can bless everyone truly, when we can be unconditionally loving, yes, Christine, I am very sure about that. And if you don't believe me, put it into practice. Okay. If you can truly, unconditionally love those people that are hardest to love, you will actually see a change in their perceptions and in their behavior. Now, this does not mean that you sacrifice yourself. This does not mean that you martyr yourself. This does not mean that you put yourself into abusive situations and circumstances, because again, at this level, at stage 10, being connected to the whole means there is an equal amount of unconditional love. There's an equal amount of acceptance for where you are as there is for every other individual, every other expression of what we talked about yesterday, which is the light behind the form. So when we're moving forward in this unconditional love, recognize love, the ability to accept, the ability to be in relationship is the fundamental principle, is the fundamental state that allows all of what we experience to actually exist. If there is only one, if there is only the observer, but nothing to observe, existence wouldn't be here. And if there was only something, but no observer, existence wouldn't be here. It's the relationship. And love is that fundamental principle of relationship. So when we can truly be unconditionally loving, there is not a one is better than the other, me or them or me. It's a complete, harmonious, interconnected relationship. And in that relationship between you and each individual on the planet is going to be different. You do not have to express the same relationship. You do not have to do the same things in each relationship. Some people need that, well, all people need that unconditional love, but some need it from a distance. There is a Hawaiian forgiveness prayer or act, and it's called, and I'm going to butcher the name of this, it's like Homoni Opono. And this was kind of made popular by a psychiatrist who was actually running an institution. Yes, Barbara, thank you for the spelling of that, even though you spelled it Ho'oponopono. Still butchered it. So what this psychiatrist was doing is he was running an institution for the criminally insane. Okay. These people were never expected to leave this institution. They were so dangerous that there was no way that he could actually physically interact with them. They were too dangerous. Okay. So him loving and him being loving did not mean that he went and put himself in the same room with the person that was at the level that their understanding was just attacking everything around them. That was not an appropriate way to do things. Okay. So what he did, and it was for a matter of weeks, I forget exactly how long, is that he took each one of their case files. Okay. And for hours and hours, every single day, for weeks on end, he would go through their case files, completely opening up, repeating this mantra over and over and over and over again, which was something along the lines of, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. repeating that constantly as he's pouring his attention, even though it's at a distance, towards the people that was under his care, because he was just totally at wit's end. There was nothing else that he could do. Okay. After a certain period of time, a matter of weeks, this institution had the highest release rate that it saw in its existence. Okay, so just this concept of not judging, of not labeling, of not trying to figure out, not trying to fix, but totally and completely surrendering to the fact that everybody is at their own level in this journey. Everybody is at their own stage of development, and each one of the stages of development requires love. Each one of these different stages of development is necessary. It's a part of the whole. And we would not be able to reach the heights of what some of us can reach right now unless there were those lower stages of development. And now I personally, I don't want to be at those lower levels of development. Okay, thankfully, because they can be really, really, hellish. But if those lower levels were not there, if we didn't have the opportunity to transcend them, which means to incorporate, include, and then build upon, if we didn't have that ability, we wouldn't be able to reach the heights that we're reaching today. So I have actually modified this Ho'oponopono practice for myself. So for myself, what I'd like to do is whenever I bump up against somebody that's just like, oh, this is a really hard person to love. Okay, I've switched around a little bit. I found that I'm sorry is not as high of a frequency as I would like it to be. So what I do is, please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. I love you. Please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you. I love you. That for me kind of helps to make this much more of a dynamic thing. And it also acknowledges my pain that's involved in this rather than only putting the focus on the other person. It puts the focus on the actual dynamic. Now, even if you feel that this other person was solely at fault, fair enough. Just the act of you asking for forgiveness for whatever happened. It may not be you asking personally for forgiveness. You could be asking for forgiveness for something else that happened to them along their path that pushed them into this mindset or this state of being where lashing out and being destructive and being hurtful ends up causing pain around them. So we're going to go ahead and share the screen real quick, and we're going to go through So stage 10 is all about merging beyond the illusion of separateness. Okay. Now we did this earlier. Okay. Stage 10, stage 5 was merging. Okay, but stage 5 was much more about merging with the illusion of separate parts of ourselves. Stage 10 is merging beyond the illusion of separateness, beyond this sense of self, merging into the fact that it is all one interconnected whole. Yes, this individualized version or perception of self is a whole, but this fits into the bigger whole. So now we're merging beyond the illusion of separateness between individuals, between institutions, between this or that out there. Okay, we're merging into true experience of one love, one light, one creative source that is having an experience of an infinite number of expressions and experiences. Okay, this is kind of one of those things, one of those paradoxes that I struggled with younger in my life, whenever I was younger, but kind of come to a conclusion on this, which may not be the correct conclusion, but hey, it's a little bit more satisfying than what I was before. Is if God is, let's just pretend, okay, that God is all knowing, completely all knowing. Okay, if all knowing is possible, can all knowing know what it's like to not know? How could something be all knowing, knowing everything, and part of all knowing would be the experience of not knowing? It's like those two seem to be in conflict for me. So the conclusion that I came to, and this is backed up by a few different philosophies, a few different cultural theologies, is that we are the ability to not know. We experience separateness and feed that experience of separateness into this whole consciousness of all knowing and all being. And so, in a sense, we are God's way of experiencing not knowing and experiencing separateness whenever God would be all knowing and completely whole. So this is the balancing act. This is what we give to that equation. So that makes us very, very necessary in that process of all knowing. Now, whether or not that's true, I have no idea, but it's a nice thought, and it helps me to kind of wrap my head around a lot of different things that seem to be very conflicting in a lot of theologies. So one of the really pivotal concepts and pivotal teachers that I came across a few years ago is Dr. David R. Hawkins. And he was a psychiatrist who actually was running one of the largest psychiatric hospitals in the United States out of New York State, I believe in New York City. During the 80s. And he had a profound experience where he fully was able to experience the oneness of everything. And it was so disruptive to his system, it actually eliminated his ability to talk for like a few years. And he had to like teach himself to not only talk, but then also to relate to people because that experience was just so altering. It was like, oh, well, if everything's all connected, well, what's the point of even communicating? But by the time that he was able to train himself to talk back at, the level that I'm at least, I don't know about you guys, but the lower levels, he had this ability to explain and to put into words these indescribable experiences that a lot of people throughout human history have had, but very, very few have been able to put into words and convey. Okay. And one of the things that, and he has a few different books, and I highly recommend them. The first book that I would recommend is called Power versus Force. Which is the first in a series or a trilogy. And it's Power versus Force, then The Eye of the I. And then the last book in the trilogy is just titled I, Subjectivity versus Reality. And there's another book that I would highly recommend if you want to just dive right into the deep end, which is Transcending the Levels of Consciousness. So one of the realizations that he had was that everybody and every stage of development throughout existence is at a specific level of consciousness. And these levels of consciousness can be tested. They can be rated to identify exactly what level of ability to process and to perceive and to act is this consciousness at. Okay. And each one of these different levels is a logarithmic scale. So what that means is that whenever you move up a little bit, you're moving up by a factor of 10. Okay, so at the lowest level on this chart, you would see log 20, but to get to log 30, you would need to jump up like 10 times rather than just, 10 increments. All right, so every different level can only perceive, especially at the lower levels, can only perceive things at its level, at its viewpoint. The ability, the bandwidth to be able to understand, to comprehend, to accept the levels above is not there. So at the levels that, if you notice, there's the red arrow off to the left, the force areas, everything below 200. Okay, at those levels, anything above the level that it's at is considered crazy or insane or dangerous. Okay, this is why Jesus was killed. This is why Gandhi was killed. This is why Martin Luther King was killed, because they were delivering messages that were so much higher than the average population's level. So most people, because they were perceiving this from this lower level, those messages of love, those messages of the necessity to change, but making that change through love, were actually considered dangerous. And so they had to be taken out. So below the level of 200, all the levels below where an individual is considered dumb or naive or, less than. So it's only the level that we're particularly at that we're going to be able to understand and comprehend. Now, once we start to move up this scale, once our consciousness starts to be able to be expanded and we're able to express higher levels of consciousness, and we're able to perceive and take in and operate more on the power, the flow of the natural process of life and evolution and change, rather than force, which is I'm going to make this happen as an individual. Okay, the more we're able to move up to those levels, once we get beyond 200, once we get beyond the level of courage, this is where the capacity to accept that there are different levels, and those levels are neither good nor bad, they're just different. Okay, if you don't have the ability of the level of 100 to express fear, well, there would be very, very few things alive, because fear can keep you alive in a survival situation. Anger can protect yourself and your family from getting attacked. Okay, so these different levels below the level of 200, even though they draw more from the environment than they give off, they are very, very necessary stepping stones in getting up to and supporting the higher levels. But again, it's only at the higher levels that we develop the capacity to be able to embrace the lower levels. So when we come across somebody who is in desire, who is just totally taken over by pride or anger, if we can understand where they are, if we can accept where they are, and we can speak to them and we can love them where they are, we naturally liberate enough energy and enough potential for them to be able to process a little bit higher and get a little bit above where they are. Okay, but if we are at the level of peace, okay, and we walk right into a war zone, and we're like, hey guys, everybody just chill out, let's all love each other, it's not gonna go well. So one of my favorite definitions of humility actually comes from David R. Hawkins. And his definition of humility is the honest and accurate realization and acceptance of limitations. So just recognizing, where are the boundaries? Where are the limitations? What are my boundaries? What are my limitations? What are the boundaries and limitations around me? And how can I work with these boundaries, with these limitations, rather than just thinking like the level below 200, that everybody should be doing and thinking what I'm doing and what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. And the fact that they're not means there's something wrong with them. Okay. This is one of the main blockages to us being able to bless all that exists, to be able to bless each individual at each different level, is the refusal to accept that everything and everyone is different, and that different is perfect. All right. So, because of these different levels, we are going to perceive life differently. We're going to experience life differently. So when we are at the level of like 75 of grief, when we are resonating in that frequency, when our consciousness is totally wrapped up at that level of grief, we're going to experience life as tragic. And it's just one tragedy after another, giving us this opportunity to express grief all the time. Okay, we're going to have experience the emotion of regret on a regular basis. We're going to experience God, or if you want to replace the word God with the universe or all of existence, like whatever you want to do to wrap your heads around this. But we're going to experience that all powerful creative force as disdainful. Right? It's just destructive, and it just causes all this pain, and it's perfect, but yet it's leaving us in all of this suffering, right? And that process of life is just going to be despondent. Okay, and our primary drive is you have to survive, and because others don't survive, well, that means I'm not going to survive, and it's just dark and it's black and it's okay. And the level or the percentage of possible happiness that you can experience in your life is just like around 9%. Okay, very, very little of your life. And 78%, whenever this chart was made, the vast majority, or I would say vast, but the majority of humanity was operating below this level of 200. Okay. Once we cross the border of 200, once we get into courage, things start to change. We start to be able to go with the flow of things. We start to have enough courage to actually trust this process. And above the level of 200, this is where things really start to unfold without us needing to struggle or strive. And it's just a matter of time. It's like literally pulling us in that direction. Okay, so by the time that we get to the level of, say, 500, the level of love, we're able to really experience life as benign. Right? We're able to experience the reverence for this amazing process that creates all of these different levels. We experience God or the universe or creation, our existence, as loving. It actually wants to have a relationship and to continue on. The process is revelation, and it's just one aha after another, because we are ourselves are emanating this field, this consciousness of love, and we're loving all that we're discovering. Okay, and the primary drive is that happiness and life itself are abundant, and there's enough to share. Okay, so at this point we can literally experience about 89% of our life as loving and as happy, but there's very, very few people that are actually at this level. All right, so as we start to recognize and accept that everybody is experiencing the world through their lens, through their ability to process, to their capacity, we start to recognize it's not their fault that they act this way. It just is a result of their ability to experience and express life. And it's a lot easier to love them if you can just see that they literally are doing the best that they possibly can with their ability to experience and express. Another way of looking at this is from a book, or it's really kind of a philosophy, is called Spiral Dynamics by a sociologist by the name of Claire Graves. And then he had two students, and I forget exactly what their students' names are. It's going to be in a different slide. But it's the recognition that each one of these different ways of seeing the world matches up with different ways of information processing, different value systems, and different scenarios in life. Okay, so at the very, very bottom of the spectrum, we have the color beige, and beige is all about survival. It's instinctive, it's animalistic. Okay, we move up to purple, and purple, the value system that is at highest is security, safety. And so this level, this worldview is very animistic. And very magical, which is like, we have all of these, different forces in life that we don't understand, but we have to appease these forces. So this is the level of sacrifice and ritual and understanding that there's a lot more going on behind the scenes, but not yet understanding this. And everything becomes about appeasing what's happening behind the scenes so that we get a little bit more safety, a little bit more security in our survival. Then we move up a level into the red level, and this is about impulses and domination and power and, taking what I can and being the top dog. This is the level of the warlord, the level of the dictator. Okay, and as we get up to these levels, okay, each level below the level of 6 can only see its worldview, and its worldview is the best, and all other worldviews, all other ways of being are, dumb or naive or crazy or, dangerous or anything else like that. So, as our society moves through this magical phase and we create all these rituals, well, some people are going to rise up and go, okay, wow, they're appeasing all these individual forces. While they're doing that, guess what? I don't have to appease anything. I just got to take what I can. I got to get it. I got to own it. I got to make sure that all of this is mine. It's not about appeasing those things. It's really about appeasing myself, which is a level above that appeasing which you cannot see and which you cannot understand, and you don't really know if it works. Okay, but after a while you get more and more of these individuals that are coming up taking all that they can. Well, then eventually there's individuals that come up and they move into this blue level, the level of 4, where it's like, okay, we need to keep everything in check. The way to create security is really to make laws and to make rules so that people are not just running around grabbing what they can, doing what they can. So this is the level of order and authoritarian. Okay, this is the level, the viewpoint that the police force, works at. This is the level where a lot of governments, approach life through, and a lot of people that are working in government systems. This is the level that they're at. Okay, and as rules start to come about and they start to provide this level of safety and security, and they keep, impulses in check. Okay, there's people that rise above that and they get into this orange level 5, and this is where success becomes the highest value. Yes, there are these rules, but you know what? If I can bend these rules just a little bit, I can create a lot of success for myself. I can build on top of the fact that everyone else is following these rules, and I can be the best at this given scenario or this given situation. So this is all about achievement and competition. Okay, this is really where the level of capitalism comes from. A lot of the United States is very much, the 80s were all about this orange level 5. Okay, but then we come out into this level 6, where as we start getting this, really successful drive going, and we start achieving and accomplishing and building up all these material possessions, well, then we start to recognize that that's not really fulfilling. Okay, so that there's those of us that rise into this green level 6, and this is like the level of the peace and the love movement, where we're starting to recognize it's not things that make life great. It's not things are not the highest value that humans can achieve. It's actually the interconnectedness between people, and it's love, and it's community, and it's relationships. Okay, and this is not only relationships with ourselves, but the relationships with the earth around us. So this is where Greenpeace and the environmental movement really it has its value system. Okay, but above level 6, which is really where we are, where the peak of where most people and most systems are, okay, is what's called this second tier. And in the second tier, this is a new version. This is a new level of consciousness that is just now starting to develop within humanity. So in 7 and 8, really there's some guesses as far as exactly what this is and what this is going to look like, because it hasn't fully developed, there's not a real solid understanding of exactly all the nuances of these levels. But one of the things that does emerge beyond level 7 is this ability to be able to see the whole, to be able to see each one of the different levels and how it fits in, how it's beneficial, not only to the individuals and societies. And when we can see each different level and how it's beneficial, we can also see, well, how do we use these different levels? Where is the best time to take on the attributes of these different levels? Okay, so 7 is really the level of synergy. It's the really of integration and seeing things as systems rather than a bunch of individual parts. And then level 8 is kind of this global, seeing the entire, much, much bigger system, this holistic, this universal viewpoint. So in this, Don Beck and Christopher Cohen were actually the authors of Spiral Dynamics. But again, they got their inspiration from their mentor and teacher, Claire Graves. And Claire Graves was the sociologist who actually was very, very pivotal in Nelson Mandela's presidency and his ability to go through apartheid without creating a civil war. And what they did is they started to acknowledge, why do people act differently in the same situations? Why is this one person wanting to subjugate everyone else and this other person is wanting to create this system that includes everyone else? Where really it comes down to their value systems. And so if you can identify what someone's value is, you can speak to them at their value level. And if their values are satiated and satisfied, then they'll be able to move up into another level. But whenever our values, whenever our needs are not understood and satisfied, we're not going to be able to move up. And a lot of times we will move down. So just being able to map this out, being able to look and say, okay, this is the level that we need to meet someone at so that we can help them to take a step out of that level, so that we can speak to them and relate to them and interact with them in a way that's not going to create more conflict, that actually going to create more cohesiveness and more satisfaction, everyone getting what they want, rather than just this me versus you, us versus them, this versus that. Okay, and again, this spiral dynamics, you can see this play out throughout history. Okay, and the way that consciousness has been able to be expressed through the masses, and how that has evolved over time and progressed over time. So in this, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Stage 10 is about moving into that state and that ability to be able to experience that full oneness, that full connection between and among everyone and everything, so that we can value everyone and everything. We can bless everyone and everything where they are. And when we do that, we're expressing that frequency of love, which is the frequency, the underpinning of all of existence. And therefore, we are literally energizing, we are giving off enough energy for everything around us to be able to improve without us expending energy trying to force it and make it happen. And when we see someone else as defective, when we see and experience someone else as broken, and we try to fix them, what we are doing is we are actually putting them into the role of the victim. And nobody likes to be in the role of the victim. Nobody likes to feel wrong. Nobody likes to feel broken. And the more and more we see the things around us as wrong, as broken, as needing to be fixed, the more we're actually cursing them. Every thought that you have, every feeling that you have is either blessing or cursing everything around you. Cursing it is drawing energy from it. Blessing is feeding energy to it. And this energy does not have to come from you. You do not have to give of yourself. You can be the channel, you can be the vessel in which this flows through so that you are always filled up. You are always satiated and satisfied, and everything comes from an overflow rather than a this or a that. The this or that is in those lower stages, and there's a benefit to that at a certain stage, at a certain time. But if we really want to get into those upper levels of being able to have an impact, we're going to have to transcend the perspective of right versus wrong, this versus that, me versus them, us versus them. And we're going to have to get into this perspective of the oneness, of the complete one love, one form, one creative process where everyone has a place. So stage 10 is the exercise that opens the door to that experience. And just like stage 9, do not expect yourself to just pop into that. Because again, if you have not fully embraced the lower levels, there's not a strong enough foundation to keep this upper level experience sustainable. Okay, this is unfortunately what happens when we rely excessively on drugs to give us those heightened experiences without progressing there. Okay, is then we become dependent on something outside because we don't have that strong enough foundation. Drugs, our body creates drugs, our body creates opioids, our body creates cannabinoids. And this is a reward mechanism. These hallucinogens are in our system and the receptors along our spinal cord, is because when we do get to these upper levels, when we are expressing that true eminence of love and having the impact and changing the things around us, bolstering up the things around us, there's a natural biological reward for that. When we do things like take in drugs from the outside on a habitual basis, what we end up doing is we end up experiencing the reward. And because we experience the reward, we no longer have the hunger to make the changes within ourselves, to go through those levels and those processes and embrace them and experience them so that we can truly transcend them, which again means to incorporate, include, and then to build upon. So if we only get the reward on a regular basis, well, we stop making the progress. That'll eventually get us into that place where we are creating the reward on our own. Okay, so I'm not bashing drugs. There's a time and a place. Hey, if you want to go enjoy yourself in a party situation, but just be very, very aware of the progress that's being stagnated whenever we do these reward things on a regular basis without actually achieving what's necessary in order to achieve what's necessary in order to have the impact that then naturally leads to those rewards. All right. So everybody just relax, find a place or a space. This one is a little bit dynamic. Okay, so if I'm going to ask everybody to kind of lay down, if you don't want to lay down, that's totally fine. Just kind of sit down. But what you want to do is you're going to be raising your arms above your head, and you're going to be pulling those arms in the most dynamic place all the way into your pelvis at the bottom of your perineum, in between your legs. So you want to have enough space. You don't want anything in front or above you so that your arms can fully swing. All right, so just relax. Find that place, that space where you can just drop in and just be. Okay, we're going to breathe in the mouth and out the mouth. Like we're breathing in all the love that the universe has to offer, and we're exhaling all of the love that we have to offer. This complete flow of dynamic relationship in the mouth, out the mouth. And as we're breathing in the mouth, out the mouth, we're going to allow our head and our chin to rock backwards. We're going to allow our chest to rise up during the inhale. We're going to allow our upper ribs to move up towards the chin while the chin rock and the head rock backwards and open up the throat. We're going to squeeze the shoulder blades together to open up this heart space, to open up this heart center, to allow, whenever we're inhaling, allow that heart center to be the center point of where that energy of love from the universe flows in, and allow, as we exhale, collapsing that heart center and allowing all of that love to be squeezed out of the body into the universe. As we're inhaling, opening up the chest, bringing the upper ribs up towards the ears, rocking the chin and head back to open up the chest. We're also going to take our pelvis and we're going to pull the front of our pelvis in towards our belly button as we inhale. So it's going to kind of be a thrusting motion during the inhale. Thrust the pelvis, the very, very upper portion or front portion of the pubic bone. Rock that pelvis forward as the chest opens, the upper ribs rise, the throat and head open up, and the chin rocks backwards. We're going to take our hands into a prayer position. Okay, we're going to take that prayer position and we're going to take our thumbs, stick them out, and we're going to put them right over our heart. Inhaling, squeezing the shoulders up and back, opening up the chest, pumping the pelvis upwards. Breathing in, making the sound of the wind. And now take the hands, put the thumbs right below the chin so that we're breathing into the hands, inhaling from the hands. Breathing in, opening up the chest, opening up the throat, pulling the pelvis up with the inhale, collapsing in, allowing all of that love to flow in and compressing all of that love in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. Now taking the hands and putting the thumbs right at the third eye, right between the eyebrows, in and out, breathing in. Making the sound of wind, making the sound of spirit, making the sound of that flow, all the way in, opening up, all the way out, collapsing in. Now take the hands and put them right on the very, very top of the head. Keep going. Keeping the spine completely straight, rocking the pelvis forward and up with the inhale, rocking the chest open and upper ribs up with the inhale, rocking the throat open and the head back with the inhale. Now reach the hands directly overhead, elbows as straight as you can. Inhaling, reaching up, bending the knees. And with the inhale, we're going to reach up. And with the exhale, we're going to bring our hands all the way down. And we're going to take our pinkies and this side of the pinkies, and we're going to touch the very, very middle parts right between our legs. And we're going to inhale back up and exhale, pull the pelvis to the hands and the hands to the pelvis. You're lifting your buttocks off of the floor. You're lifting your buttocks off of the table to meet your hands. So the inhale and the exhale, inhaling up, exhaling, bringing the hands between the legs, inhaling up, exhaling, bringing the hands between the legs. Really getting in there. Now bring the hands right back to the heart center, thumbs touching the heart. In and out, in and out. Pelvis rocking up, chest rocking up with the inhale, collapsing down with the exhale, breathing in all the love, exhaling all the love. Now bring those thumbs right below the chin, breathing into the palms of the hand. All the love in the universe flowing into the body, all of the love flowing out of the body during the exhale. Bring the thumbs right to the third eye, right to the center of the forehead. Bringing the hands right to the top of the head. Straightening the arms up, bringing the hands down during the exhale between the pelvis, wrapping the hands around the pelvis into the perineum. Back up with the inhale, down with the exhale, back up with the inhale, pelvis rising to meet the hands. Inhale, back to the top, pelvis rising to meet the hands with the exhale. One more time, bring the hands back to the heart center. Rising the chest, raising the pelvis with the inhale, opening the throat, rocking the head back, collapsing in, compressing everything out back to the universe with the exhale. Hands back to the chin, breathing into the palms. Thumbs to the third eye. Hands to the very top of the head. Arms straight overhead. Exhale, bring the arms down. Keep the arms straight, rocking the pelvis forward, bringing the hips up to meet the hands during the exhale. Inhaling, bringing it back. Arms straight, shoulders locked, chest open. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, and let go. And just be. Experience everything as one interconnected whole. The flow, one solid thing, one experience, expressing as an infinite number of ways to have that one experience, one consciousness expressing itself through an infinite number of limited views and perspectives. One love. Expressing itself as an infinite number of ways to give and receive. Feel the space Feel the connectedness. Feel the one space that's both around and in the body. And when you're ready, breathe in the nose and out the mouth. Move the shoulders, move the arms, move the hips, move the legs, wiggle the toes. Go ahead and sit on up. Come back into this dimension. Come back into the room. Come back into the body. Come back to the computer. And when you're ready, go ahead and raise your hand or type in. This one may be a challenge to answer. When you experience the oneness, it's like, well, what do I got to say? It's already all said. It's already all there. I just am. It already is. So if there's anybody that would like to express any comments or questions, now's the time. Hey, Barbara.
Hello, Tad. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Always so timely.
Funny how that works. It's almost like it's all connected.
Huh. Exactly. I wonder. So I have a question. Sure. And I'm just trying to think how to. So in terms of communicating with people, right? How to talk to them from the place that they are, so we can understand each other and still feel authentic.
Yes. So the reason I really like the spiral dynamics is because it acknowledges that everybody has a certain set of values. Okay. So if you're talking to someone and you recognize that one of their highest values is security and stability, if they're in that blue level, where rules are really necessary in order to keep things stable and to keep us all safe, okay, you can connect to that part of you in which that part desires safety and that part desires, things to be known and understood ahead of time. And by connecting to that part of you, having that part of you speak to them through their values of safety and security, you'd be surprised at what you can actually agree upon. Right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're like talking down to them just because you recognize that safety and security is really not how you get to thriving. You recognize that until safety and security have been established, thriving is not going to happen. So where are the places in your life in which you are valuing, where you're at that blue level, where you're valuing the safety and the security, and you're valuing the rules, and you're valuing having things in order and in its place? And if you speak from that part of yourself, you'll naturally match them without having to change yourself, because you are expressing yourself. But like I said, you're using the lens of that part of you that's also has the same values as that other person.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. So then, and actually, this is the other piece that I wasn't not sure how to say it, but like, so then sometimes I feel when I communicate, I feel very vague.
Yes.
Because of that. But then, yeah, maybe that's it. Then I can leave it like that. However,
yes,
don't not to be okay.
Yeah, because if you are expressing yourself and it is vague, that means that you're expressing with a lot of space. And so there's a lot more ways that they could take what you say and incorporate it into their worldview and the way that they think it. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with quote unquote being vague, especially if you can acknowledge what their values are and speak to those values. It just allows them a lot of wiggle room to be able to agree with you.
Thank you. That helps because I always felt confused.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Todd.
Uh-huh. Anybody else? Go ahead, Rachel.
Uh, th- that was like a harmoniously intense experience of all.
Yes.
There was like my solar plexus bone was popping,
Uh-huh.
and I got electrocuted. But while I'm getting electrocuted, do I still hold my spine straight?
Absolutely. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to keep things the way we want to keep everything aligned so that that energy is going to be able to flow. Okay. Now, in the beginning, that energy, there's a lot of blockages. So that energy flowing, there may be some resistance there, and whenever there is resistance to that energy flowing, we are going to experience it as pain or discomfort. When there's no resistance, we'll experience that flow as blissful. So it's the same energy, but if it's experienced through resistance, it's going to be a different experience than rather whenever it's experienced through openness. But in order to transcend the resistance, we have to embrace it. We have to accept it as it is. And that energy is enough. Just like water carving through rock, that energy is enough to wear down and make the changes that it needs to. But if we're shifting and moving, it's not going to allow that flow to go into the direction that it wants to. It's going to allow that flow to go into the pathway of least resistance, which may not be the ideal pathway. So keeping the body and the spine erect and still as that energy flows is surrendering to that process, that transformational, that transmutational process. And for some of us, that's very much like a trial by fire, or a trial by electricity, where everything
It's enjoyable. I'm
good.
enjoying the electricity very
Yeah.
much. I just didn't know if I was supposed to push into the pain more.
No, you let
Not
it.
pain. It's a interest. I just okay.
Yeah. Awesome. And that means that Rachel, you are above that dualistic standpoint. If you're experiencing that electricity as something other than just pure pain, that means
It's exciting.
there's a part of you on each one of those sides. So embrace that excitement, but let that electricity, let it transform you, rather than thinking that you need to do something for or with it.
No, I'm not doing anything. It was my body was moving itself, but it was really wanting to spiral around the sacrum area.
Yeah, and at those lower levels, like if you're in stage, 3, 4, 5, those stages, that's really where you want to let the body move you. In those upper stages, you just want to totally and completely be with the flow of energy. So there's a time and place to move with that energy and move with the body and allow the body to move. But these upper levels are really about holding that space and allowing the transformation to happen.
Great, thank you.
I
have a question about that then, because throughout the exercise, I was able to stay still aside from the moving that we needed to do. But then after we were done and I rested there, I was still for a minute, and then my chest shot up.
Sure. Yeah, but that's after the exercise.
Okay.
So the energy flowed. Once the energy flowed and removed and transformed and transmuted some of the blockages and the resistance, the heart space opened up. And this is really where the awaken, the stage 8 through 12 is really about making sure that the heart space is connected to all space. And so, that heart rising up is exactly the movement that we would want to see the body make after the flow of energy has been efficient.
Okay, cool. That's what I thought. I was just double checking.
Yep. Anybody else? Okay, so
I guess you didn't see my hand. So
yes,
I just wanted to share a little bit kind of how yesterday went leading up to this. Felt very prepared for today, I guess.
good.
I wept the majority of the day yesterday. It just kept coming, all different kinds of tears, but I wept
Yes.
a lot. And then last night I was watching one of Dave Chappelle's specials.
Love him.
I do too. And even more after watching that show last night. It was the one where he won the Kennedy Center Award, which was a fantastic episode. But I kept sobbing through the entire thing. And mostly tears of joy and gratitude. And when about halfway through the episode, because I was like, geez, I'm not a crier. So when I do weep like that, I'm like, good God, woman, what is wrong with you? And of course, watching a comedy special, I'm weeping. I'm like, you are crazy.
Yes,
and
all experiences together.
Right. Well, and when then it went to the crowd, and every time the camera panned to a face, it felt like I was that person. Like I was every single person that I saw, every single thing. It was crazy how it just kind of happened.
Yep.
And I couldn't really separate that. And I went to bed after that, and that was kind of, and I feel great today. And that felt amazing. I could feel myself. There was a little block, and it did kind of feel electric. So that, thank you, whoever shared that. That was really neat to hear that's not abnormal. And it didn't last very long. It kind of like went, it was a weird sensation, almost orgasmic.
Yes.
And then I could feel my energy just around the entire planet. And it was just love, and everything in it was love. And that was beautiful. Thank you.
And so, Amory, just having had that experience of being able to witness, everyone as yourself. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you lived in that experience, would you ever need something like the 10 Commandments telling you what to do or what not to do? Would you need to be told not to hurt anybody? Would you need to be told to be forgiving? No. Because, you have that experience. And so, just recognize a lot of the rules and the regulations that we have, those are there in place because we as a whole, as a collective, humanity is not at the level we're experiencing existence in this way. And when we're there, it's not that the rules are bad, it's just they're unnecessary.
Yes. And I also felt not alone at all. The lonely thing has been getting so much better in the last couple of weeks, but I was so not alone because I was everyone. So I was not alone. It was like, yeah. So it was really cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody that shared. So unless there's anything else, Tasha, so glad you enjoyed learning more about that focus on the whatever that is. It's a really, really powerful exercise. I highly recommend it for any of those times that we're struggling with being wounded or perceiving ourselves as this, something bad happened. This is the interesting thing that happens in these upper levels is when we are experiencing ourselves as the whole, there's no individual self to take offense or to be triggered or to be wounded. And so it gives people the freedom to be however they want to be, because there's not this individualized sense of self even to be wounded. So it's a very, very interesting, very, very counter cultural way of being. And just as a reminder, these are amazing mountaintop experiences, but these are not experiences that are meant to be permanent. Okay, because everything needs to be in relationship, everything needs to be dynamic flow. So we want to have the ability to achieve these states almost at will, with the recognition that this is not where we stay. We get energized. We have this light and love showered down upon us so that we can bring that back into this third dimensional reality and share that with everybody else that is in those other levels. So enjoy this. But please, please, please do not expect that this is the new normal. Yes, bring it back to humanity and being human. And being human is the whole spectrum, all of the different levels. So I love everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you guys soon.
Love you. Bye bye.